Welcome back to part 4 of Into the Breach on Unfair with the Steel Judoka. Up on the screen, we've got our heavily upgraded mechs. We've got the Judo mech with Ghana. He's got the Titanite blade, the shield tank, conservative, you love it. Chen Rong, buildings immune cluster artillery, +1 damage on the Vec hormones, and Abe Isamu on the gravity mech with mass confusion. Our final island is going to be quite the challenge, as you can see. We've got that horrible spider leader. We've got tumblebugs, centipedes, the blast scion. We've got webbing. We've got smoke. And bouncers are there as well. But I am feeling pretty good because we've got all these upgrades. We've got a full grid health bar. So we're hoping to close out the run strong. And right off the bat, we've got a bad decision. This is just an awful mission. Using the repair platforms and killing 6 or fewer enemies, I was not feeling that one at all. But air support is usually pretty decent. Even if we're not going to get any rep out of this mission, it will at least open up more of Archive's map for us. Ghana's special ability lets me deploy them anywhere on the map and do some chip damage, which will help us hopefully kill that blast scion as quickly as possible. And we get our first of 2 time pods for the island. And even though it looks like many of the enemies are going to be getting destroyed by the airstrike, we have a problem here, because the blast scion will be causing, detonations. It will blow up the tumblebugs boulder, and it will destroy that shield on the grid building that's being targeted by the bouncer leader. And I believe my best bet is to destroy the blast scion right away. That saves us some headache. We can shield the emergency battery building from the bouncer leader with the shield tank, first of potentially 2 to be deployed. And then using that range upgrade on the mass confusion, we can deflect that centipede's attack. So we are safe for this round, but we still have problems. So we're at a 2v4. But this centipede is just going to be causing us problems all throughout the picture. Now, I speed things up a little bit here because this turn takes me a while to find a solve that I like. I even think I wind up using a temporal reset here. So I first attempt to push the centipede with the Titanite blade, but then I see that if I try to push it even further east, its attack would still hit the grid in the back, the unshielded building in the far northeastern corner. So I reset, and this time I grab the time pod with Abe, and then I elect to do just some simple shot blocking. And I use, I think, my second of the shield tanks to do the body blocking for me. Since they have the HP upgrade, they can tank a single hit from the Alpha Centipede. And the Bouncer Leader is doomed. So our next turn will be a 4v5. If we are not counting the Archive bombers, and, we don't really have any control over them. The Vec also very kindly align themselves to be destroyed by the Archive airstrike. So some judicious shielding of the grid will protect us from the chain reaction of the tumblebug unstable boulders exploding. And that just leaves the centipede's attack once more to deal with. And simply having Abe body block it. You know, if he heals himself, he will get rid of the acid status effect and he can tank a shot. And that just kind of leaves Cheng with nothing really to do, but it's fine. On our last turn, Cheng has the nice combination of opener and finisher, which is a speed boost and a damage boost on the first and last turn. So it's our final turn, and it's a comfortable 2v5. And there's no threats to the grid. All we have to do, really, is make sure that Cheng does not get destroyed. And Cheng can defend herself easily enough. So we're in the clear. And I probably could have killed the centipede with the Titanite blade, potentially. Although, actually, no, I don't know if I had the damage upgrade at this point for the Titanite blade. I don't think I did. So we will just leave it alone and call it a W. And we're off to a strong start on Archive. No damage taken to the grid. No, this is the 4th island, and if the run has been going otherwise well, as it, it ultimately has been, we've been, getting our perfect island rewards, we've been getting decent amounts of reputation. By the time the 4th island shows up, you should be powerful enough to comfortably snowball. Assuming you have, you've lucked into some decent upgrades. So I do upgrade the damage on the Titanite blade. But as I mentioned before, it's a little bit weird that I stick the +1 use upgrade on the Titanite blade, because Ghana already has conservative. I see we've got a defend the armored train mission, which is usually pretty player-sided. Once again, we can see the usefulness of Ghana. Not only can he do a little bit of chip damage, but oftentimes I hope for their presence on the enemy side of the board to take up enemy attention, waste enemy actions. So we've got the Tumblebug leader, as well as the Blast Scion and a Tumblebug, so we've got lots of self-destruct on the table. But fortunately, we have the shield tanks, which are a useful countermeasure against the tumblebugs. You can shield the grid to protect them from the, explosions, or you can shield the boulders themselves, which will prevent them from being destroyed in the first place. This attack will let us finish off the Blast Scion, which is handy. And it will clear up space. We need to make sure the train tracks are clear. And then I give Abe a big experience boost, letting him kill the Tumblebug leader, even though that would have been killed by the centipede attack. It's a little bit more difficult for the Gravity Mech to consistently get big XP awards, so, I saw an opportunity and I went for it. So it's our next turn, and we're looking at a 3v4. My favor. But we got a little bit of a problem here, because even though the train is armored and can absorb 1 damage weapon attacks, The Tumblebug Boulder Explosion does not count as a weapon attack. It is self-destruct damage. It is distinct. I speed up the clock a little bit here because I kind of waffled a little bit before I made some decisive decisions. But finally I realized, oh, what I need to do is deploy a shield tank, protect the grid, and then I can shield Ghana. Ghana will still be able to keep a spawn block, and they will not be destroyed in so doing, thanks to the shield. And then Abe can do a second spawn block and protect the train. So our final turn will be a 3v5, my favor. Maybe even the 3v6 if we count the train. Which we kind of can. And we get one more centipede, of course. But we basically just have to worry about a threat to the train, as long as we can handle the alpha centipede over yonder, we should be okay. Of course, we've got a problem because Chen's finisher means that if we hit the train would take damage. But I have the option of the Titanite Blade to get me a 2-for-1. And we got these silly little shield tanks. So we will sacrifice one to shield the train, protecting it from the Titanite Blade. And we will be in the clear. And Ghana gets their final level up and gets +1 reactor core, which is really nice. Love to see it. And that is another GG, another successful mission. Just 2 left to go before we have our confrontation with the Spider Leader. It's funny, I often say that the Spider Leader is one of the hardest bosses. And I think I have now showcased the Spider Leader in 3 different of these video series. Trust me, it can get really, really bad. I think I was just mostly lucky. I think the first time we saw the Spider Leader, we took a lot of damage, and it was a bad time. But on this particular playthrough, I was feeling confident. So we have the Light 8 Spaces on Fire mission, which I don't think we've showcased yet, but I decided not to do it because Centipede Acid, I believe, can extinguish fires, so I would be a little bit of a disadvantage there. We do have a Tidal Waves mission, which is short and usually pretty player-sided, as we've seen before. So I pick the Tidal Wave mission. It's going to be pretty easy. We just got to get the mites cleared off our mechs. 2 centipedes, a tumblebug, a bouncer, and the bouncer leader for our Op 4. And I'm hoping that I can bait some attacks on Ghana. And then I position the other mechs in the hope that I will encourage the enemy to be, maintain their position on the more eastern side of the board where the water is rushing in. And as luck would have it, there are no attacks against the grid on this turn. When the enemy gives you a turn like this, I often find it best to simply just get rid of all of the Vekmites. That will accomplish the main mission objective, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. As nice as it would have been to deploy a shield mech, I choose just to, get rid of the mites, keep it simple. It kind of wastes Chen's opener, but it's fine. This is only a 3-turn long mission. And we also get a nice consolation in that the bouncer leader will be blocking a spawn for us. And we'll get some nice, solid damage on the bouncer leader. But now we have 2 threats to the grid. We can position the Tumblebug Boulder in such a way as to negate its threat. Now we just have to worry about the Bouncer Leader. And I believe that I can safely protect the grid by deploying a shield tank. And the tidal wave will be consuming a spawn for us, and we block yet another spawn with the centipede, so our final turn will be a functional 3v4. Also, I love the sprite of the bouncer in the water. It looks like it's got a pair of floaties. It's adorable. One of my favorite rare sprites of the game. So it's our last turn, and we've got 3 rooting, tooting threats to the grid. We can use Mass Confusion to swap the direction of the Bouncer Leader. That will solve that problem. And once again, the Siege Mech can just protect the other grid building with ease. The Siege Mech, as you have maybe noticed over the course of this playthrough, is sort of low-key the MVP of the Steel Judoka. It's just got that delightful omnidirectional push. The only downside is it kind of needs that building immune upgrade, because oftentimes the grid just is uncooperative. That's another pretty painless mission out of the way. One more before our confrontation with the Spider Leader. I didn't like the look of this particular map. It's boring and, killing 7 enemies, probably doable, but we are spec'd mostly for defense, with our shield mech. So I think I go with this mission, with the mines. I didn't like the fact that most of the mines are on my side of the board, but, we've got the tools to hopefully use that still to our advantage. This is also an interesting example of, normally deploying Ghana right in the middle of the enemies kind of disrupts the AI. This will be an example of the enemy just not doing what I hoped they would do. Instead of attacking Ghana, they kind of spread out. I was trying to position my mechs to also try and encourage the enemy to, walk into some of the landmines, and they were mostly uncooperative. Sometimes, the AI will do as it will. We also get our final time pod of the run. We gotta get that. Yes, the mosquitoes go fan out, as does that last bouncer. So we have 4 threats to the grid, and only 3 actions in which to solve them. I'm going to be speeding up the time again, because I kind of waffle back and forth before I find a solve that I was happy with. And even then, I still was not very 100% happy with the solve I came up with. But you can see me trying to first see what I can do with the Siege Mech. And I can't quite... I can knock both the mosquitoes away, but I can't really do anything about that bouncer. Going back to normal speed here, just briefly to show you that I do try to see if I can do anything with the Mass Confusion ability. But it doesn't really get me anything solved that I was very happy with. You can see me moving, repositioning. I can kill the mosquitoes. This is when we finally have a solve that I was mostly happy with. So I use Mass Confusion to switch the direction of the bouncer, This way I would be only taking 1 grid damage instead of 2, as the bouncer will bump into the grid. I was not very happy with this, but I just did not see an alternative with the other tools I had available. But we are lucky. Very lucky indeed. That 19% chance came through for us. You don't like to rely on high grid defense, making up for bad luck or bad plays. But with that turn out of the way, things are now looking much more manageable. The strategy now becomes just aggressively blocking spawns, and the bouncer will help us out in this endeavor. If you ever find yourself in a position to just get a stranglehold on the enemy spawn points, it is often worth doing. And the deployable tanks, they very much help in this endeavor. Granted, you usually want to have either conservative or the +2 HP upgrade on the tanks, ideally both. That buys you time to, sit on spawns. And we can deploy our second tank here, and Abe can join in the fun. And on our final turn, we will be looking down the barrel of a 1v5 my favor, which is an excellent position to be in. So it's looking like we'll be going into our boss fight with no grid damage, no failed objectives. Can we thread the needle? Can we shoot the moon? Get our first perfect island of this run. Perfect in every way. I elect to wound the leaper such that Abe can get the kill. Abe is the only pilot I have left that actually needs experience. And we are in good shape for the Spider Leader finale. We also get to see what's in our final time pod. I think I brushed over the fact that I received the repair field passive, but I didn't equip it because I was just, I was happy with what I had. We also get the Explosive Vents, a Prime class weapon that I don't usually use very often. It's definitely not worth replacing the Titanite Blade with. It's an omnidirectional damaging push, which can be handy, but it can also be risky, depending on how the grid lines up on the map. You definitely need space to use that weapon effectively. I consider where to place my new power core. I think I'll end up putting it in the +1 use for mass confusion. I'm not sure that was the best choice. I usually, there are multiple missions go by where I never even use mass confusion. One nice thing about having Ghana against the Spider Leader is you can start the mission usually destroying 1, maybe 2 eggs, just to help buy you, buy you time, keep the action advantage on your side, rather than starting at a functional 5v3. This will be basically a 4v3, if we don't count the Spider Leader. Looks like our main problem here on this first turn are the centipedes. But I come up with some really cool solves over the course of this boss fight. First and foremost, I believe it is time to figure out if the siege tank can help me. And I can block a spawn and then use the Titanite Blade to position the centipedes in such a way that the siege mech can really start to solve some problems for us. Yeah, with both the siege mech doing, 4 tiles of damage and the Titanite Blade doing 3 tiles of damage, It's very helpful to have a lot of damage against the Spider Leader, because it just clears out eggs and it clears out spiderlings. And since the Bouncer Leader is going to push itself into the water, we are in the clear here. The Bouncer Leader will just take a nice attack from the Centipede, and even get acid applied, canceling out its armored passive. And we can see the rare acid-covered floating Bouncer Leader. So it's our second turn. We've got 3 eggs ready to go. But the Siege Mech will let us get that managed even better. And then I also like the solve I come up with on this turn. This is an example of maybe the reason why I was considering leaving the +1 use upgrade on the Titanite Blade, is because I just never had a really good opportunity to deploy a shield tank so far. But it doesn't matter, because I've just been taking advantage of the big-time damage. So there we go. Spider Leader's down, both Centipedes are down. We've just got to worry about a single Spiderling and the non-rare Vex spawns. Oh, I guess we haven't seen any Tumblebugs yet. Of course we get 2 Tumblebugs. But with a shield tank on deck, we probably have sufficient ability to handle Tumblebugs. We can deploy our first shield tank to prevent that boulder from exploding. Anti-Tumblebug technique. And we will be on to the final turn, looking at a functional 4v4. We get a Bouncer, a exploding boulder chain reaction, potentially. The Siege Mech can easily handle the Mosquito and the Spiderling. I just have to figure out a way to prevent the Tumblebug from causing problems. And I believe there were multiple solves here. I could have maneuvered the Gravity Mech to just pull the Tumblebug away. And that would have been GG. Instead, I deploy my second shield tank. And that will prevent the chain reaction from damaging the grid. And that is a W. We get our perfect island reward, and no grid damage was taken over the course of the island for the first time in this run. So we are about ready for our final island, the Volcanic Hive. We have our perfect island reward of the Shock Cannon, Harold Schmidt with +2 HP. Or I could turbocharge the grid even more. I go with Harold. But I don't really plan on using him, because I'm happy with the pilots that I have. I probably could have swapped Abe out for Harold. +2 HP is about the same thing as the armored trait that Abe is providing. And the omnidirectional push would have been given some nice options for the Gravity Mech. But I was feeling pretty good about it, and we've seen Harold showcased quite a bit. So I decide to sell all the things that I'm not using. The weapons and equipment available for purchase I was not particularly impressed with either. Most of those were side grades at best, or, downgrades at worst. So I think we just elect to buy as many cores as we can, and then whatever is left over, we will pump into grid defense. I believe we max it out. The highest it can go on unfair difficulty is 25%. And again, you don't want to be relying on that if you don't have to. I do consider maybe selling Vec Hormones or maybe selling Mass Confusion to get a 4th power core, but I decide to stick with my guns. So we will be in good shape for the final mission. My final score of 37,022, my lowest so far of these videos. We get that damage upgrade on cluster artillery, and we are going to send it. I think I just, do a little bit of core shuffling, go for survivability. Can't hurt. Make Abe more tanky. So that'll do it. That's one down, and I apologize for the subpar quality of the commentary on this one because I had recorded like a half-hour commentary yesterday, but then I forgot to press record. Whoops. Whoopsie daisies. Like and subscribe.